Number 19, the 19th ALCS.
Tigers and Guardians played game 4 of the ALCS. Unfortunately for the Tigers, it was actually Friday.
The San Francisco 49ers have a piece of the NFC West.
The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
Number 19, the 19th ALCS appearance by the Yankees. Unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. Before we get started, don't forget, subscribe to the channel or just subscribe to the show, whichever podcasting platform you prefer. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube, like our videos, hit the bell so you're notified when our videos go live. So obviously today's show is going to be all about Game 4 and the Yankees moving on to the ALCS, and the fact that the Yankees don't know who they're playing yet because the other ALDS game went in an interesting direction. We'll talk about that later. But first, give it up for Gerrit Cole.
Yeah, I mean, this is the performance you signed him for. This is what you gave him $300 million for. In an elimination game, come out and, I mean, is there a better definition of a pitcher shoving than this? I mean, he was this is one of the best performances we've ever seen Gerrit Cole pitching Yankee uniform.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't an elimination game. It was a moving on game. Like, if they lost, they would have.
The Royals it was.
Well, for the Royals, yeah, but for the Yankees, it wasn't. But I joked on Twitter. I said, the Yankees do realize that if they lose this game, they're going to have to count on Carlos Rodon to win an elimination game. So let's just get this wrapped up. Let's just wrap this up, do it. But yeah, Cole was tremendous. I think it was hilarious that Tommy Pham kept getting hits off him. And he thought it was pretty funny, too, because he's just one of those guys where he's just like,
you can't get out.
Oh, well, okay, I can't get you out. Here we go. But things really could have fallen apart for Cole after the brouhaha that occurred, and it didn't. Thank goodness. The brouhaha, kerfuffle, the Donnybrook that happened at second base. But overall, Gerrit Cole was tremendous. Just a total bulldog. And I knew he was going to be fine because people were talking about the first game and how not Gerrit Cole like he was. And I said, he tends to do better when he has starts like that. He'll come out in his next start and just, figure out what he did wrong and fix things. You don't usually see back-to-back starts where Gerrit Cole struggles. So I had a feeling he was going to come out on Thursday and look like vintage Gerrit Cole.
There's something
very pleased with it.
There's something to him being in a rhythm too. Like the game 1 start, he hadn't pitched in 9 days. This one, he was on regular rest, normal routine for him. There's something to be said about that. I want to address this because I knew I was going to get called out for it. Brandon, I still wouldn't have started Gerrit Cole today, even though he was incredible. He was amazing. He could have done this performance in game 5 also, or in game 1 of an ALCS. So I still wouldn't have started Gerrit Cole. He won the game. Doesn't mean the opinion was necessarily wrong, or I take it back either. But Gerrit Cole was amazing. He was in bulldog mentality. You can tell because when they got into the brawl fight, whatever you want to call it, it was the most baseball fight you've ever seen in your life. But when they got into that brawl or fight or whatever you want to call it, Gerrit Cole was right in the middle of it. He was ready to go. He was ready to start throwing punches because he's just in that mode.
Yeah.
I would not have went to Clay Holmes in the 8th inning. I would have let Gerrit Cole pitch the 8th inning, or I would have had Holmes ready and put Gerrit Cole out there for the 8th inning. I don't understand. I still can't grasp the immediate rush to get guys out of the game.
I don't agree with it. He was starting to get hit. No, but he was starting to get hit a little bit, and I can understand why Boone in a 2-run game decided to do Holmes Weaver in the 8th. I actually agree with that move. I thought it was a good move.
We have seen
I can't even believe I'm saying that. I can't believe I'm saying that.
We have seen Holmes a million times this year give up 2 runs in the matter of 2 batters.
As a closer. He's doing so much better. He's doing so much better as a setup guy right now. He really is. He's in his last how many outings? He hasn't done anything bad. He's fixed something with his Weaver fixed something with his grip, but Holmes also worked on something clearly because he looks like a completely different pitcher than how he looked during those few months that he was struggling.
I would have put Cole back out there at 86 pitches, and once he gave up a hitter or put a base runner on, then I would have brought the bullpen in. I wouldn't have just rushed to go to the bullpen and pull. your Cy Young award winner, ace pitcher. I didn't think it was necessary.
That was my thought. As John Duke said, you would rather have Holmes have a clean inning, which is
you trust Clay Holmes over Garrett Cole
in that situation in a clean inning. Yeah,
I don't. I still don't. With the way Garrett Cole was pitching this entire game,
I don't know.
I would have
Cole
absolutely
was starting to get hit. No, I felt like that was the right move. I can't believe I'm agreeing with something that Aaron Boone did, but I agree with that move.
Regardless, Garrett Cole went 7 innings. He was incredible.
Yep.
It was the most clutch start that he's had as a Yankee. And you can't ask for anything more than what he gave you. You really can't. And no, the wind was a good contributor. The MVP of this series was Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah,
and he deserves his credit. Another RBI tonight. Which the one good point that Costas made throughout the entire series was when the infield of the Royals had to play in there. You can only imagine what's going through their heads playing in on Giancarlo Stanton at the plate. And then he rifled the ball at about 175 miles an hour to the middle of the field, drove the run in. Yeah. Aaron Judge had a double, so you got to feel good about that.
And he walked a couple times.
Glaber's been consistently awesome in the leadoff spot. Juan Soto's been Juan Soto. They overall had a very clean series, other than the loss in game 2. They had a very clean series, very well played series, and just get yourselves ready for Detroit or Cleveland. You got lucky that both those teams are now going to a game 5.
Yes. Yeah. So what I don't like is it looks like Judge was starting to fix things, and now we have to wait till Monday, so he has more time off, which doesn't help him. But it's good for the bullpen arms to get some rest. And I know that Nestor was throwing, I believe, today to see if he could possibly contribute in the ALCS. But the start of the game, I have to say, I was impressed with Gleyber and I was impressed with Soto because they scored that run within like 3 seconds. Like you blinked and all of a sudden the Yankees were up by 1, and they needed to do that. And I know it was only 1 run, but even just doing 1 run for Cole was a big thing for them to do.
It has a lot to do with, we've mentioned this before the series started, a lot to do with the experience coming in for them and the been there, done that mentality of the Yankees. Like they've played in these big games before. They've played in elimination games to the other team. They've advanced in series before. They understand the importance of coming out and punching a team in the face in the first inning and going up 1-0 before the other team even gets to bat. It's deflating. When the opposing crowd in Kansas City is going crazy, looking for a win, the Royals are hyped up. You punch them right in the nose to start the inning off, and they immediately there's a deflation. It's something a young and dumb team like Detroit wasn't able to do. And didn't understand the concept because Cleveland scored first in that game. The experience of being able to get things done like that early on in the game means so much, and the Yankees showed it. They're gonna have to keep doing that, and you get really lucky, like I mentioned, by Detroit and Cleveland playing at a game 5, because now Skubal has to go in game 5 for Detroit, and now he can have max pitch in 2 games for the Tigers in the ALCS.
Yeah, and let's hear it for the Yankees, the first number 1 seed to move on. Because the Dodgers are going to be in a game 5 and the Guardians are going to be in a game 5. Now let's quickly talk about the brouhaha, because leading into the brouhaha, what a play by John Birdie at first, who's barely played at first base, to turn that play. Like that was amazing to get the ball to Volpe.
And I had no problem with Volpe's tag, which it seemed like the runner did. I think Volpe kept his glove on him, and then when the runner overslid the base, I don't think Volpe knew whether or not he fully got the tag down before the runner was safe. Right. So once he was off the base, he continued the tag like we're all taught in Little League.
Right.
Continue the tag and keep the tag on the runner until the runner is called out. He did that, and then the runner didn't like that. I think Jazz was defending his teammate, which is what you want to see out of that. And again, Garrett Cole was ready to get right in the middle of it, which, just kind of showed Garrett Cole's bulldog mentality in this game of he wasn't putting up with nothing. Head down, he was ready to go fisticuffs right there at that moment. Yeah. And you like that. The whole team was involved. I think the clearing of the bullpens and the benches was a little
much.
Yeah. But you know what? That's baseball sometimes. That's baseball, Susan. They got the win. That's what's important. And I do like how they celebrated afterwards. And I know they're going crazy in the clubhouse right now. but they celebrated on the field afterwards. But it wasn't this, oh my God, feeling like we've never done this before. It was a very business-like celebration. They seem like they're on a mission, right? No crazy out of this world celebration. No. They're here for a bigger cause, and I like to see that.
I will say this: Tipping Pitches, which is a podcast, they quote tweeted the video of the benches clearing, and they said, not to defend a Yankee, but going in for a takeout slide and then getting mad when you receive contact on the tag is loser energy.
Yes, and he slid very late.
Right. He slid like literally at the last second. So why are you getting mad? Like, come on. And, he was the one that tweeted about Rodon and how Rodon came out and was making a big deal. And then they scored on him. And he was talking some trash. Massey said some stuff before the game about, being ready for Saturday as if they were going to win the game. And what did Massey do all game? Cole struck him out twice. So I kind of like that the Yankees didn't have any of this bite them in the butt, because that's tends to happen with them sometimes. But I would just tell you guys right now, you're everydayers. You watch the show, you listen to the show, you know that when I have my feelings, I'm usually right. I had my nervous feeling all day again today, and I was like, they're going to win. It's going to be scary, but they're going to win. And one quick thing, Luke Weaver. I mean, my God, we'll talk about him in the next segment too, because he had an interesting quote that I want to bring up. But I feel so confident when Luke Weaver comes in. Luke Weaver? If you told me even like a month ago that Luke Weaver was going to close out the ALDS and help send the Yankees to the ALCS, I would have been like, okay, sure. Whatever you say, crazy person. And here he is. He fixed the grip on one of his pitches. What did they say on the broadcast? I can't remember. And he just makes people look silly. Mm-hmm. He made Sal Perez look silly.
Yeah, his stuff's ridiculous. Especially the fastball combination with the changeup that he has. And that changeup it's got very much.
I think it was the changeup grip. Yeah.
It very much reminds me of Kodai Senga's ghost fork pitch, where it kind of just disappears. Yeah. It's a very effective pitch, especially followed by his fastball. He's a gem that they found out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's incredible what he's done and what they've done with him.
Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED, LOCKED, on all one word for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
Let's just start with David Fry, though. You and I were texting throughout that game. So I felt like Stephen Vogt went in the wrong direction. I thought he waited too long. I think it was like what's the opposite of a knee-jerk reaction? Like it was a knee-jerk in the wrong direction, which your knee's not supposed to go that way. An elbow jerk?
Is that an
elbow? I don't know. Like we can agree. We didn't necessarily agree in game 3 about how he went about going to the bench. And I thought in this game, he waited a little too long. You ended up having Manzardo face a lefty. You ended up having Will Brennan face a lefty. And then you waited too long and you never got David Fry in against a lefty. So they brought him in when they did. Tyler Holt was already out of the game. And you knew Brant Herter wasn't pitching. And because he had gone too far on Wednesday, so they were only going to be able to go to Gunther, and Gunther came out right before Fry came up. So at that point, David Fry was never going to face a righty or a lefty, and you've already had to sacrifice for some reason Will Brennan against a lefty, and I guess they waited for Noel, which we'll get to later, and they let Manzardo hit against a lefty earlier. So I thought Vogt waited too long, and it turns out results over process in the postseason, right? Like better to be lucky than good. Yeah. I'd rather look stupid than David Fry not doing anything against Bo Brisky there. You know, we've talked about all of David Fry's injuries, the struggles against the right-handers on yesterday's show. Didn't matter. I mean, again, you and I both believe process over results. I don't think it was a good process, but in the postseason, results matter. Process goes out the window once you get the result.
You know, it's one of those things too. Like you and I both are like, it's not the right call for different reasons. Like for me, I was like, they should have gone to him when they went to Noel to assure it. And I was like, and Brisky is better than Gunter. So, you know, you do it. But, you know, it's one of those things that we were both wrong for different reasons. And that's what's hilarious about it. That is baseball. A lot of Tigers fans got very mad at me, called me arrogant and said I was not giving them enough credit yesterday. But it's one of those things that we saw today. Like, it's better to be lucky than good. Like, you know, they got lucky. Cleveland did in this one. After we talked about how, you know, there was some positive luck that really buoyed Detroit early on. When it's a super close series like this, luck is a big component. These are two well-matched teams. It's two of the best bullpens of baseball. I probably haven't given Detroit's enough bullpen. You know, AJ Hinch, I will say again, and I said last time, is probably the best manager in baseball. And two offenses that both have their struggles. But when you go down to it, it's the little things. It's the luck that can separate. And in this game, you know, when Torque got caught off a second, and I'm blanking on who hit that ball into that double play, like that was probably the point that that turned the game.
Which inning was that you were talking about? When
they scored the run and then got the double play.
In the second inning off Tanner?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Jake Rogers lined out to shortstop. And then,
yes, it was Rogers. Yeah. Like, that was an 800% batting average normally, right? Or an 800.
Yeah, it was an 800 expected batting average, which Fry had on Wednesday to the third baseman, and it didn't work out. So, yeah.
I'm a special ed teacher, Jacob. I don't give homework directly. So,
yeah,
just bringing that up. So, I not one of my students, I swear. I'll throw some box score bingo in at some point today, I'm sure.
All right, we'll get it in there. I didn't realize, Cody Ray, a good comment. I did not realize David Fry was down 0-2 in the count. I kind of blanked out watching that at bat because I was like, this is not going to work. Like, there's no way David Fry is doing anything against Bo Brisky, and I didn't expect a home run. Didn't realize it was 0-2 either. That's just, you know, even better. And then not only that, I mean, he ends up going with, and we were texting with a friend of the show, and he called it before it happened. He said, I would go with a bunt for David Fry, let Quan steal, and if he misses the bunt, then see if they throw through and let Rocchio score if they throw through, which they probably wouldn't have. But David Fry gets the bunt down, Rocchio scores, and give credit to Rocchio, by the way, because he had a great game.
I'm sorry, Brian. I'm sorry. I was wrong. And he's showing
Brian's not a fast runner. He got down the line.
He's not.
Yeah. So give a ton of credit to Brian Rocchio. He has been on base every game this series. He's worked walks. He's gotten hits. He just missed a home run in game 1. He has been unbelievable this series for them. Great defensively. There's been no.
He could be the MVP. Like, if they win it, there's a world where he could be the MVP of the series.
I mean, there's no ALDS MVP, but if there was,
I'm used to in OOTP. They every single series they announce a who's the MVP.
Yeah, that was incredible. Yeah. To quote, this is a great whatever this comment is from Drastic. To quote you guys last year, random variance. And somebody got mad at me in the comments on Thursday show, was like, Justin, why do you say everything is random variance when something goes wrong? And we're talking about the playoffs. And I'm like, because the playoffs are a ton of random variance. Like, you can do your best to load your roster up with guys that are good and get the matchups in your favor and get good players who come through. But there's still a bit of luck to it. And Jose Ramirez, I know we were talking about his postseason numbers. By the way, it's a home run today. Finally comes through against a lefty. He's been incredible right-handed this year, which is really weird.
And he owns Holton. He's like 4 for.
He just owns all lefties this year. If you go look at his numbers,
specifically, like, he owns Holton in particular.
Yeah. So, you know, there's just the reason I said that about Jose is that it was kind of random variance and hard to chalk up because, like I said, it's like 5 or 10 games a year chopped up over like 6 years of postseason results. I can't take anything. I can't combine those together to make up anything serious. Like, they're all their individual chunks of random. That's why I said that. So, all right, Jeff, why don't you get the box score bingo in, because we've got a zillion comments I want to throw up on here.
While I pull up I do got to point this out. I've seen this in a few places, and I agree with this. I think that about
yes,
Roquio.
That's a great comment, Alonzo. Yes,
and
he looked like the player we hope he was a prospect. Solid defensively, working walks. His swings have been really good. There's been a couple balls he's chased, but every time Roquio has chased in the series or he's gotten down in the count, he has worked his way back. Like, he is not. I don't think I've seen an at bat from Roquio in the series where he gets down 0-2 and he just like flails like a fish. He has been staying in at bats. His swings have been good. He's really matured in this series, and that's huge for the Guardians in the postseason and hopefully going forward.
Yeah, and then shout out to Aiden Morgan, who was a Roquio truther. So for Cleveland on this one, they had 11 hits and only 1 walk. So that's 12 opportunities. And yeah, the only hit by pitch was on the other side. So that should only be about 4 runs. The other side was 9 hits and 4 walks, and then the intentional walks. So they had 14 opportunities. Detroit was closer to 5. So, Detroit actually had more opportunities in this one due to having, more walks in that situation. So again, it's, one of those things where we talk about luck, and you can make a very good case that some of these games, luck wise, shifted one. And when you have 2 good teams that are evenly matched, and again, I apologize to Tigers fans. Like, I'm not saying you have a bad team. Just these 2 teams are so evenly matched that luck can be, the separator. And in this game, like, you look through it, it's like Cleveland probably shouldn't have won this one, but luck was on their side. Maybe in game 3 they should, or game 2 or 3 they should have won, but luck wasn't. So I think that's where it is right now. It's the box score of it. If I did the whole thing, Quan, Thomas, reach base. I mean, everyone complaining about them doing nothing at the deadline. Like, how important has Lane Thomas been to this team? Like, can anyone out there still complain about anything that, like?
Yes, Lane Thomas. Yes, good.
He's
point.
Been huge. Like
that trade ended up being phenomenal.
Even if Clemmy turns into a solid starter, like, what he has given them is unbelievable.
Yeah, Lane Thomas, after the first inning, they scored that run in the first inning. At that point, had scored 8 runs in the postseason, and 4 of them have come off the bat of Lane Thomas. So he had another hit later in the game. It's had a huge postseason for them. Absolutely. Expected batting average tonight, pretty even. It was 287 for the Guardians, 269 for the Tigers. This is just one of those games where the Guardians, they had a little bit better luck. Like I said, the David Fry lined out into an out on Wednesday in game 3, and he didn't get it. Jake Rogers hit the ball right to Brian Roquio for the double play there. He didn't get it. Essentially, that's almost the same play. I mean, Jimenez got robbed later in the game on that play. I think it was Colt Keith still there at second base at that point. That was a great play by Colt Keith.
No, I think that wasn't him when he dove to he was out. Like, wasn't it the 8th inning play?
No, Ibanez didn't. No, you're right. That must have been Ibanez at second.
Was it Jace Young? Was it Jace Young at second?
No, Jace Young came in for Kerry Carpenter as a DH.
So he stayed DH.
Yeah, that was a great play by whoever was playing second base at that point for Detroit. I had to go back and look, but I know
it was Ibanez. It was Ibanez.
We'll talk about Tanner Bybee. We'll talk about the bullpen. I said, Jeff, before the start of the series that Cleveland was going to have to find a way offensively to punch back because the bullpen was not going to be perfect all postseason, and they haven't been, right? Emmanuel Clase in game 2 gave up that big hit, and in this game, Cade Smith gave up some runners, and then Hunter Gaddis came in, and unfortunately one of them scored on an inherited runner, and then Emmanuel Clase, gave up a leadoff hit in the 9th inning there, and he's been asked to do a lot. They haven't been perfect.
5 outs is a lot.
Yeah, and they've been able to punch back. That, to me, that's the most encouraging thing out of all the things this postseason that have happened. I mean, they're tied 2-2, so anything can happen in game 5. We'll talk about game 5. But to me, the biggest thing tonight was they scored runs after Cade Smith got touched up and Gaddis allowed the inherited run, and they put a run up on the board just to keep it, given the insurance and a Class A. So they were able to punch back later in the game. That's got to be incredibly big for their confidence to know that if they can get Terry Skubal out of the game in game 5 at some point, they can do it for their offense.
Niners won a game. They won an NFC game. They held on after a 2-score lead and finished a stinking game and beat the Seattle Seahawks 36-24. And like the other two games in the NFC West this season, they beat them worse than what the score said, but at least they held on and they finished this game, Croc. That is story number one. The 49ers did not blow this win. It looked like there was a chance that they could in the second half, but they did not. They made the plays. They made the stops on defense. They made the plays on offense. They put the ball in the end zone. 36-24. San Francisco 49ers beat the Seahawks, now tied with Seattle 3-3 atop the NFC West.
This was a huge win for the 49ers. What the 49ers were risking was going 0-3 in their division, 0-4 in the conference, falling to 2-4 on the season, with Kansas City and the Dallas Cowboys coming up, two opponents that will be definitely challenging. So I thought it was huge. No matter how the 49ers won, you went on the road on a short week, right? That always favors the home team. I don't care who you're playing. It always favors the whole home team. And you figured out a way to pull off a win. So I know there's some things that you want to see the 49ers improve on, some things that looked a little sketchy, some things that got a little bit better, and definitely some rookies to talk about. But I think the biggest thing should be the 49ers got the W in what felt like and what I really feel was a must-win game even this early in the season.
A phenomenal win for the San Francisco 49ers because they would have dug such a huge hole, and we talked about that all this week because of some of the games that are still difficult coming up in the very near future on the 49ers schedule. This is not an easy schedule for the 49ers this year, and they dug themselves a hole. You can't go 0-4 in the conference and start losing tiebreakers for those wild card spots. You can't go 0-3 in the division and lose head-to-head against the Seattle Seahawks for the division tiebreakers. So it was massive for the 49ers to come out here and win this game and show everybody what we already knew. We already knew the 49ers were a good team. The 49ers are literally two plays away this season of being 5-1 right now. And we would have been talking about this team so much differently if they would have made one of those plays in each of those games against the Rams and the Cardinals than we did. And even though it was the same exact football team, we would have made it felt a lot different if they would have made plays. They made the plays tonight to win the game, Croc. They made it multiple times. They made it on offense. They made it on defense. And this is a fun game because you get an opportunity to give out a whole bunch of game balls because I think there's a lot of deserving game balls in this one. And I think I want to start with a guy who's been crushed more than maybe anybody in the San Francisco 49ers organization this season, and that's Nick Sorensen, the 49ers defensive coordinator. The defense did their job. They got the rookies ready to play, and I think we're going to give out some individual rookie game balls as well in this game. The defensive line came to play, and they made stops in this game. And, it got a little hairy at the end, but if you take away the special teams gaff, I'm not going to give the special teams coordinator a game ball in this one, even though the 49ers did some okay things on special teams, aside from allowing Laviska Shenault to go take one back for a touchdown.
Real quick, talking about special teams, did you see the one that went off the guy's thumb and what their reasoning was for not giving the 49ers the ball?
So I didn't catch the reasoning. It was like they couldn't find a clear recovery. Is that what it was?
No, the angles that they were looking at and all the views was some kind of live video, whatever they just got. And from those views, they couldn't see anything definitive. Obviously, what we got to see on TV and some of the views that they showed later were much clearer, but the refs weren't afforded to see that. So that's unfortunate. I don't know how that happens on a major broadcast, but I don't know if it's Amazon Prime. Somebody needs to fix that.
Yeah, they didn't have all the feeds or something because it looked pretty clear once you saw it. And so that was unfortunate for the 49ers. And that's when you start to feel like, man, it just can't go the 49ers way. Something's going to happen. It really felt like, oh, it's Groundhog's Day. They're going to screw this up again somehow. Let's see how it actually happens. But they didn't. And 2.6 yards per carry for the Seattle Seahawks. The 49ers dominated up front. They put the ball in Geno Smith's hands. We kind of knew that the Seahawks were going to throw a lot anyway, go a lot of 3 wide. No Charvarius Ward in this game. So you had the rookie Renardo Green that was going to step in and play a starter's amount of snaps along with Isaac Yedem on the outside because they're going to go 3 wide and you got to put Demo in the slot. And Demo did Demo things in this game as well. And so Geno Smith ends up throwing the ball 52 times and he throws twice as many interceptions as he does touchdowns. And so a phenomenal job by the 49ers team. They finally finished a game that they were up big on in the division, which was so important. This was literally the biggest game of the season for the 49ers thus far. And when we look back, it might have been the biggest game of the season in totality. to be able to beat the Seahawks and go to 3-3, win that division game. And they own the tiebreaker now, or the Seattle Seahawks, and we'll see what happens in their final matchup together. But really puts the 49ers in such a good spot compared to where they could have been if they did lose this football game, and probably some confidence for the 49ers defense as well, especially for those young players who played really well in this game. So first game ball goes to Nick Sorensen.
All right, talking about giving Nick Sorensen a game ball. This is a guy that I think a lot of people are going to look at some of the things that they did on the back end and taking the ball away. But how about what they did against the run last week, having almost 2 100-yard ball carries against the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray, and number 6, why am I blanking on his name right now, from Pittsburgh Steelers, the running back.
From the Steelers?
I mean, he was with the Steelers.
James Conner.
James Conner. There we go. James Conner, almost 100 yards. Kyler Murray, almost 100 yards. Well, against the Seahawks, all right, 20 carries as a team, 52 yards, 2.6 yards per carry. So you want to talk about turning some things around, figuring things out. Part of it is Seattle. They've been struggling to run the ball, especially in the first half. And this game, they struggled first half and second half. They just can't figure it out. But the 49ers, again, I think there's something to be said when you do what you're supposed to do. And one thing they were supposed to, stop a bad rushing team from being able to run the ball on you. And they did a really good job of that.
We got to heap some praise on the rookies, right? And former cornerback Eric Crocker, I'm going to save some players for you. I'm going to go with Malik Mustafa, who didn't play in the second half because he hurt his ankle, and so I hope he's able to come back. But Malik Mustafa,
I don't think it's going to be good. I don't think, typically when you hurt your ankle and you leave the game and you don't come back, that screams high ankle sprain to me. That's what it screams.
Usually
there haven't been too many times I rolled an ankle, and more times than not, I mean, I'm pretty sure people in the chat, I'm pretty sure you roll an ankle, it's sore, maybe you wrap it up, do something, you're back in there. After the game, it swells up, it's really stiff, and it takes a few days to kind of get that swelling down or whatnot. But you typically don't see a guy roll an ankle bad and not be able to return at all for that game. So the fact that he wasn't able to finish the game, to me, that says it may be a little bit more serious than just your normal ankle sprain.
Hopefully that is not the case from Doc Croc here on Locked On 49ers. But yeah, because ankles are the type of thing like that swells up and gets worse. It's not going to be better tomorrow morning than it was today during the game, or whatever treatment he could have got at halftime, right? So that is a bad sign. But I've really liked what I've seen from Malik Mustafa, the way he plays. I would have liked it if he was able to turn it upfield and not run the ball out of bounds at like the 3-yard line after he intercepted it. But aside from that, phenomenal, big hitter. Like the way he's playing. And I think it's pretty clear when you start to look ahead at this 49ers roster in 2025, they have some young players in the secondary that they're going to lean on to be the starters going forward. I think Malik Mustafa is probably going to be one of those guys. And, that might mean that you have to let people walk in free agency. So that's good showing from Malik Mustafa. I like what I saw there from him.
I think Hufanga, with the injuries he's having, and they just continue to mount up. You have a guy like Mustafa that you feel confident in. He's coming in. He's playing well. Now you see him getting an interception. I think that says right there, you might be able to give Hufanga his walking papers. We'll see how much the 49ers, if at all, are willing to pay him, especially with Jair Brown back there. But another guy that contributed on the back end, another rookie, got to give a shout out and a game ball to Renardo Green. We talk about that Mustafa interception on that drive. Well, they accredited that interception to Nick Bosa and the pressure of Bosa. But I thought that Geno actually had pretty good time and was kind of comfortable with making the throw, even though he did have Bosa barreling down. I think the biggest person that was responsible for that interception was Renardo Green and his coverage. He had really tight coverage on Tyler Lockett running a crosser, and that made Geno have to try to throw a perfect pass kind of over the top of the defensive back. It set on him just a little bit, and that's why Mustafa was able to get the interception. So shout out to Renardo Green on that play. On the very next drive, he had a nice PBU. Obviously, later in the game, huge interception when they kind of had a little bit of momentum going. They got to stop against the 49ers. They have an opportunity to potentially drive down the field and actually take the lead. And it looked like Geno Smith and DK maybe not quite on the same page. DK Metcalf started kind of drifting up a little bit. I think Geno wanted him to flatten that off and not allow the cornerback to be able to undercut the ball. Whatever, the 49ers were the beneficiaries of it. Ronaldo Green was a beneficiary of it. And watching him make that play right there in that key moment, I think that gives a young cornerback a lot of confidence. So shout out to the young guy, made some plays, gave up a catch here and there. But for the most part, I thought he was really, really, really good.
Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And you can take aim at week 6 of the NFL with that $5 bet. This Sunday features a battle of 2 generational quarterback prospects, though now we're getting to see them on the field. The Jaguars travel to face the Bears. Chicago favored at home, but only just. FanDuel has the Bears as 1.5-point favorites. So what are you waiting for? That's FanDuel.com to get started.
But Matt, I want to start with your Lions. Early on in the season, the offense was a little up and down, but over the last couple of weeks, it's looked fantastic. Do you expect them to be even better moving forward?
Well, first off, Marcus, let's start with this. Taylor Decker is reporting. All right, he's reporting.
Thanks. Good. Make sure everybody knows that. No confusion.
Oh my gosh. I'm just glad we're getting this game done and over with, so now we can put that to rest, because it's been the Lion fans are still ticked off. The Lions are still upset with what happened last year because they thought they had a win over you guys. But no, offense seems like it's back. It's kind of weird. You get the bye week in week 5. They got some momentum. They ran up and down the field with their offense against Seattle. And yet now they got to sit and wait for 2 weeks. They finally got a little movement. Jared Goff felt good. The offensive line played well. The run game mixed with the pass. You get Amon-Ra going. You get Jamison Williams going, all in the same game. Laporta gets more touches. And then you got to sit and wait for 2 weeks. So the bye, I thought, came at a very early time. But to kind of answer your original question, yeah, they feel good about the offense. It started slow. I think there was some rust there from not having anybody play in the preseason from the regulars. And now you're going to get Frank Ragnow back for this game after he missed the Seattle game. The 2-headed monster of Montgomery and Gibbs. Which Cowboys run defense will we see? The one earlier in the year that was a sieve, or the one the last couple of weeks that's been good? That will be a big key for this game.
And it seems like the Lions, and you mentioned it with Ragnow, they seem pretty healthy on both sides of the ball. Is that correct?
Offensively, yes. Defensively, not having Marcus Davenport for the rest of the year. Likely Derek Barnes gone for the year too. 2 edge guys. Barnes was kind of a hybrid linebacker edge guy, really coming into his own. Remember, he was the one that missed Dak Prescott, just whiffed on him on what should have been a safety on the CeeDee Lamb touchdown last year in this game. But he's played well. So the question is, who's going to be the edge on the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson that's going to be effective? Josh Paschal has played there. James Houston and others, they've rotated, but who will be that guy? But otherwise, yes, they are healthy going into this game.
So how do you feel about this Lions defense through, I guess, 4 games now, because they've had the bye? Do you feel like it's an improvement compared to what we saw at the end of the year last year? Do you think it's about the same? What are your thoughts?
Oh, no, it's improved. It starts in that secondary room, really in that cornerback room. A year ago when CeeDee Lamb was going for 2 bills and lighting up the Lions in that game, he was going up against Kindle Vildor and Cam Sutton. Vildor is back, but he's like cornerback 5 on this team. Now you're going to see Terrion Arnold, who's been flagged a lot. He's getting handsy, but he's a rookie cornerback that's physical, and I think those flags will go away as he gets more reps. Carlton Davis has been a big pickup. Amik Robertson, Ennis Rakestraw. So, 2 guys drafted in the first 2 rounds. The additions of Davis and Robertson, they feel like the cornerback group is so much better. And now you move Brian Branch to safety, where he's a stud. And Kirby Joseph's had a Pro Bowl year so far. So defense feels good. Again, a little bit injured on that other edge, but DJ Reader in the middle with Aleem McNeil feel like they've shored up that other D tackle spot. And Levi Onwuzurike is a guy that's played well in a contract year. So Lions defense is better. Are they a top 10 defense yet? No. But the way Hutchinson's playing, they feel like they can get there.
And Matt, we feel like, I mean, at least I feel like this is going to be a shootout, right? Like this is going to be a game where probably both offenses in a dome are playing well. It's just going to be which defense can get a stop or two at a critical point. And that's really all that you're asking for this Lions defense, right? You're not asking them to be the 85 Bears, but can you get a stop a quarter? Because if they do, I don't see how the Lions don't win this game.
No, I'm with you, and I've been saying it all week. And I had Trey Wingo on the show yesterday. I think the Lions are the better team. I watched every snap of that Cowboys Steeler game the other night, and give Dak credit, hung in there, boy, pouncing on that fumble. You must have been going crazy at the end of that game. But this is not some world beater Cowboy team. I know you know that. You cover them and are at this every day. I think the Lions have had their issues in Dallas, going back to the picked up flag game in the 14 playoffs. Last year's debacle where really Detroit outplayed the Cowboys. Go down there and win. And I think the Lions feel like off a bye, bodies rested. If they're physical and they're able to mix run and pass, and like you said, stop a quarter and just eliminating the big play, I think Detroit's in good shape.
And we'll talk about the Cowboys here in segment 2, but I think Cowboy fans are still trying to figure out what version of this Cowboys team they're getting, right? Because early on in the season, it was rough on defense, and the offense played well. Over the last couple of weeks, the offense moving the ball better, not scoring, but now you have no Micah Parsons, no DeMarcus Lawrence. Their third defensive end, Sam Williams, out for the year. Their fourth defensive end, Marshawn Nealon, on the injured reserve list with a foot injury, or sorry, a knee injury. They're down to their fifth and sixth defensive ends, and it's going to be awfully hard to win a game like this without that kind of talent on defense. And yet, Matt, I thought they would lose last week because of all the injuries on defense. So I don't think this is the same Cowboys team that we saw at the end of the 2023 season. They clearly aren't as talented, but you know this, when you have a good quarterback, and we can even go back to like the Matt Stafford days, you've got a good quarterback and a good receiver, you can compete and steal any game.
Well, let me piggyback off of that, Marcus. You bring up a great point. Who did the Cowboys see last week? They saw an offense that had a guy that was jogging through routes, a quarterback that can't throw the ball. I mean, he can run. Justin Fields, hey, put him in the backfield. He's fantastic. Can't throw. He didn't throw in Chicago. And I don't know why people thought, he's going to go to Pittsburgh and be the next Ben Roethlisberger. This week, you're now facing an offense where if you give Jared Goff time, he's finding people. I mean, it's Laporta over the middle. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's Jamison Williams. It's Khalif Raymond. It's Gibbs out of the backfield. Lions have weapons. They love Brock Wright. Their second tight end makes plays. So this is not the Steelers offense with George Pickens jogging and maybe a dose of Freiermuth. I think that if Dallas doesn't have, like you said, if Micah Parsons isn't playing,
he's not playing.
Yeah. So you're talking about last year when the Lions prepped for Dallas, they spent so much time on number 11, a ton, just knowing where he is. What are we going to do? And that's a good offensive line. That's Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker. So I would think the Lions figure if you're not getting pressure on Goff, Lions feel like their offense is going to be smooth sailing.
And we'll talk more about the Cowboys defense here in segment 2, but the only somewhat of an advantage the Cowboys feel like they have going into this game is that they feel like they have the corners that can match up with the Lions receivers. Trayvon Diggs did not play in last year's game. He was coming off the torn ACL, but Jordan Lewis had a fantastic game against Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's obviously back. Diggs, the Cowboys are hoping, can play well on the outside, and even Deron Bland, there's been some whispers that he might play this week, the first game of the season, coming off a broken foot. So if the Cowboys secondary can hold up against these receivers, maybe you'll see them blitz more, but that's always scary if you're having to send 5, 6, 7 guys just to create some kind of pressure against Jared Goff. The Cowboys defense does not match up well with Detroit, but at least you have some hope because of the secondary.
Always been a big Jordan Lewis fan, going back to his days at Michigan, a guy that, like you said, in the slot, veteran. That's the kind of guy that you want on Amon-Ra. You're so right. I did see, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, I did see the name Amani Oruwariye.
Yeah, he played very well last week for them. But
I know. I'm like, wait a minute. An interception the other day. He had some really good seasons for the Lions, and then his last year here was an unmitigated disaster to the point they didn't bring him back. So
he's one of those guys, like, less is more, right? Like, and this is where the Cowboys know, like, hey, the more that he has to play, the more he's going to get exposed. But for a 1 or 2, game spot starter, you can live with him out there.
Yeah. One other note on the Lions, I know we're going to get to Dallas in a second. Jack Fox, big weapon as the punter. I know you're saying punter. What are you talking about?
We're not going to see him on Sunday. Don't worry.
Flips the field. Flips the field, though, and has been a weapon for this team to keep that defense kind of on the other side of the field. So keep an eye on that.
He can keep his legs nice and rested. I'm sure he's the holder as well. That's probably the only work he's going to get.
Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED, LOCKED, on, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
I want to start by talking about our friends at FanDuel, Jay, because they've got Ohio State favored by 3.5 points. Now, this swung back and forth throughout the summer. Oregon was a 1-point favorite. Oregon was 1.5. Ohio State was 1-point favorite. Swung back to Oregon. Through 5 games, both teams are 5-0. That's what you and I both thought would happen. The top 3 showdown is here. It's the highest ranked matchup in the history of Autzen Stadium. Do you think Ohio State should be favored on the road?
Whew. Yeah, I do. And I'm only saying that because I mentioned something to you on the Big Ten Squad show, but even aside from the way the Buckeyes have played in the third quarter and just basically taking the game over as soon as they come out of the locker room, their trench play has been phenomenal this year. It's been fun to watch. O-line, D-line, just straight domination at times. Not the entire game, but at times and most of the time, Ohio State's been dominant on the O-line and played better than advertised. And on the D-line, you literally have 4 guys that are about to get drafted in the upcoming NFL draft. And when you think there's Tyleik Williams in a major drop-off to Ty Hamilton, that's not the case with the D tackle spot. Ty Hamilton is holding his own and even playing better than a lot of people thought he was going to. And I think that's going to be the deciding factor in this game, which is why I believe Ohio State is favored. The interesting thing, though, is, and when you and I have talked about this all offseason, all summer long, Autzen Stadium is a tough place to play. And then you add in how really not many Big Ten teams, and most of them have really flopped, making that cross-country trip. I wonder what Vegas knows that we don't know, because I do think Ohio State is going to struggle mightily in this game due to the time zone difference. Now, Ryan Day said we're going to stay on Eastern time zone. That's cool. But, buddy, when it's a little bit different, the sun's out or the sun's not out at a time but it's supposed to be, that plays with your mind. So I don't know if Vegas knows, man, because I think the spread should be a little bit smaller based off the way that Vegas normally does things. But, yeah, they should be favored. Absolutely, Ohio State should be favored right now.
Vegas does drop a dud every now and then with point spreads. Think Colorado at UCF. Buffs were a 12.5-point dog, won the game by 27. Every now and then they drop a dud.
Yeah.
More often than not, no. Well, they tend to know something, or at least they have seen something through the first 5 weeks that makes them think, yeah, Ohio State should be favored here, which begs an interesting question, Jay, that I got from a couple different Locked On Ducks listeners. Who do you think has the better overall roster in this game? The 24/7 composite talent roster for 2024 would say that Ohio State is better. They're 3rd, and Oregon is 6th. Do you think that is an accurate reflection of how these two rosters top to bottom match up?
Yeah, I think top to bottom they match up pretty evenly across the board. You have two really seasoned quarterbacks in Gabriel and Howard. You have 2 guys in the backfield. Was it Jordan James back at Oregon, who's been very good this year? He kind of popped off last week against Michigan State. I'm like, okay,
career
he's
game,
ready for the big time matchup against Ohio State. But Ohio State kind of takes the nod, not only because of the transfers, but Ohio State has a lot of future NFL guys that stayed in school. And I think that's what separates Ohio State right now from Oregon. Is Ohio State.
I gotta push back on that one, because that's been the similarity that I've highlighted all offseason talking about this game, of why this is a fun matchup and why these teams have such big expectations coming into the season. Because Oregon's had that as well. Terrence Ferguson at tight end, Jeff Bossa at linebacker, Jordan Birch at defensive line, who had the best game of his Oregon career last week on the heels of what was maybe his best game of his Oregon career the week prior against UCLA. He looks like he's playing himself into a first or second round draft pick at the moment. So I actually think that's why these teams are kind of similar, Jay, is they've got the returners, they brought in high-level transfers, and they've got the solid veteran quarterbacks.
That solid veteran quarterback thing is what Ohio State needed this year, and I know that Ryan Day wants a more mobile quarterback. I'm going to make a statement here. I really haven't said much negative about Kyle McCord at all this year. I've been trying to be a Buckeye fan that praises him. If McCord was a quarterback this year, I think Ohio State would still be undefeated, but I would be trying to pull the little hair that I have in my head out because things would just not look like they are. Will Howard is not a future first-round draft pick at quarterback. I do not believe that at all. But I believe he's the type of quarterback that Ohio State needs to run this offense. Just manage a game, get out of the way, don't try and do anything stupid. He's done some stupid stuff this year. Don't do it consistently. Let your guys on the outside, let your running backs do all the job. Trust your own line, which is what he's done. And so the veteran quarterbacks, that's one of those talking points and things we're going to be watching all game because as good as Dylan Gabriel is, Will Howard is good too. I do think Gabriel's a better quarterback than Howard, but these two seasoned quarterbacks, veteran guys, I believe they're the type of guys that are going to make this game really tough for the opposing defenses.
Yeah, I like the quarterback matchup. I give the edge to Oregon with Dylan Gabriel because I think the body of work he's had in his career has been more impressive so far. And I think what I've seen from these guys this year is exactly what I've expected for the most part. Now, Dylan Gabriel has to protect the ball in the red zone. He's got 3 red zone turnovers that were all caught inside the 5-yard line in the last 2 games. He does that against Ohio State even one time. And I think with how good this Buckeyes defense is, that could be ball game over because I think this is a one possession game. I think this is a slugfest. I think it's all those classic cliches of who turns the ball over less, who is better situationally, who has fewer penalties, who makes the one play, who has the ball last in the game. Like anything like that can decide this game. I think it's that sort of matchup. Ohio State's got a lot of NFL players. Oregon's got plenty of NFL players. Oregon's got 2 NFL caliber offensive tackles. They've got 3 wide receivers who probably find their way on NFL rosters next season. 2, at the very least, I think would get drafted in Evan Stewart and Tez Johnson. Jordan James and Noah Whittington. James probably has better NFL prospects than Whittington at this point, but certainly I think you give the edge to Ohio State's backfield this year. They've been great, but when I look at what Gabriel and Howard are doing, it's exactly what you and I talked about in the offseason, Jay. It's the best supporting cast, the best all-around team either of these guys have had around them in their careers, and they're having career seasons because of it. And, you know, one of those go-either-way factors, bounce a ball, randomness that I was talking about that could decide this game is which one of these quarterbacks has the better game against a couple of defenses that look really, really good through the first 5 weeks.
The quarterback thing, man, I'm going to go back and have a little conversation I had about Will Howard in the offseason because I said I don't know if his arm is stronger. I don't know if he's going to make better decisions, if he's going to be more accurate. He hasn't really shown me consistently that he's been that guy. Now, the game this past weekend, I think he had his highest completion percentage of the year, but I still don't have a full 100% trust in him as a quarterback throwing with his arm. The belief I have in him, though, is because we talked about Ibuka before the show started. You got Jeremiah Smith. Carnell Tate's back. He is healthy. Those 3 receivers make Will Howard's job really, really easy because they do a great job of just finding the hole in the zone or beating guys in one-on-one coverage. So for Will Howard, I got questions about him still, but the guys on the outside make his job easy.
Yeah, I mean, Ibuka has been good. Jeremiah Smith has been spectacular. And just a quick note for Oregon fans that might think of Jeremiah Smith and say, oh, yeah, he makes those one-handed catches. Yes, he does. And they're really cool. And they're really awesome. He is much more than that. He is not just a spectacular catch guy. This was a 5-star plus, I think, wide receiver recruit coming out of high school. Only guys that get that sort of label are guys like Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith who make that instant impact. Like he's the real deal.
Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And you can take aim at week 6 of the NFL with that $5 bet. This Sunday features a battle of 2 generational quarterback prospects. though now we're getting to see them on the field. The Jaguars travel to face the Bears. Chicago favored at home, but only just. FanDuel has the Bears as 1.5 point favorites. So what are you waiting for? That's FanDuel.com to get started.
I'm Jay Smith from Locked On Sooners. He is Jonathan Davis from Locked On Longhorns. And we have got to talk about the Red River rivalry, one of the oldest and the best in college football. I know y'all want to disrespect us coming into the SEC, but we didn't need that patch for this bad boy to be great. The Longhorns are coming in as a major favorite. And so, Jonathan, first and foremost, how do you feel about us in the SEC with this rivalry?
Yeah, man, I'm excited to, for the team to try to go out there and get the golden hat back. Y'all stole it last year, but
stolen.
You talk about stolen. Y'all earned it, I guess, right? I guess. But you look at it, Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC. I think this is just where we belong. No disrespect to the Big 12. A lot of great matchups, and some of them I missed for sure. In the Big 12, but I just think the best football, is played in the SEC. They've said it for so long, it's just ingrained in your head. It just means more. And when you look at Texas and Oklahoma, obviously two blue bloods, two of the most historical programs in the sport, we deserve to play these big marquee games, right? We've already seen it with Oklahoma playing against Tennessee. Texas is going to be playing against Georgia, next Saturday after the Red River rivalry. These are the games. These are the matchups. These are the slots that Texas and Oklahoma should be in. So you talked about it. We didn't need the SEC, marketing and the, SEC boost this weekend for, Texas, Oklahoma, and Red River, because it's always been a great game. But in terms of being in the SEC, when you talk about two of the most historical programs to ever play the sport, they just deserve to be in the best conference playing football. And right now, that's the SEC.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand in this conversation that, when you go down to Red River and just see the beauty of it, seeing that half and half, players run in, they hear either a cheer or a boo, and then they get to the opposite side and it's all cheers or boos. And it's like the most fascinating experience, especially when you have like another 200,000 people outside of the stadium. But the beauty of being in the SEC too is we get to go to a whole bunch of big stadiums. Unfortunately for both of us, Oklahoma never plays in Austin and Texas never plays in Norman. So since it's always in the middle, we don't get the true feeling of major road games unless it's out of conference. Y'all went to Michigan this past season. We were at Ohio State not too long ago. We also played at Auburn, of course, a week before the bye week. So we got to start feeling that hate in the SEC. How do you feel about making your first big trip to looking at y'all's schedule, the only real one y'all go to is Texas A&M, and that's a rival.
Don't sleep on Vanderbilt. Hey, Vanderbilt just beat Alabama.
Touche.
You might have to go to Nashville, but you just talked about it, like those experiences, those environments. It's just so different than going to Ames, Iowa for Iowa State, or even Stillwater where, the games are great. Waco for Baylor, just things like that. Fort Worth for TCU. And I don't want to disrespect our old counterparts, but now you talk about Rocky Top, right? LSU, Death Valley, going to the Swamp, even though Florida's not great right now. Kyle Field, I mean, the building literally rocks. You know what I mean? When they get to jump in Tuscaloosa, just all of these, big stadiums, big atmospheres where they just do football a little bit bigger and a little bit better. And so, like I said, Texas and Oklahoma deserve to be in this spotlight for sure. We have for a long time. And yeah, it's going to be exciting to, actually go to these big, stadiums, these college towns where, they'll die about their football teams. You know what I'm saying? Just a little bit lighter in the Big 12, but it's big boy football in the SEC now. And it's even bigger because Texas and Oklahoma came, Realignment, 100%. I would say, for a lot of teams, it affected them negatively. But Texas and Oklahoma really came out more positively, after realignment, right? Texas got Arkansas and, Texas A&M back in terms of rivalries. Y'all are playing Missouri again. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
So Texas and Oklahoma really benefited from realignment, where a lot of schools kind of affected them negatively.
Yeah, and I don't expect nobody to be the next Nebraska, even though my rule is actually doing some special stuff up there. We'll argue that another day.